All right, let's just dive right into this explainer and really unpack how Web3 is fundamentally altering the mechanics of financial recording. If you're fascinated by the architecture of modern money, you're absolutely going to love this. We aren't just looking at some surface-level software update here. We're talking about a literal evolution in accounting itself. Now, core accounting principles like global IFRS standards, they're sticking around. They remain constant. But the actual machinery, the ledger mechanics we use to apply those principles, that is going through a massive, massive transformation.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 4 key sections: the accounting evolution, operational mechanics compared, structure and taxonomy, and finally, the new responsibility. Let's get into it.
But before we get to the granular mechanics, we really have to start with this foundational, almost disruptive question. What happens to accounting when the intermediary bank completely disappears? Just think about that for a second. Literally, since the Renaissance, for centuries, this entire accounting process has relied on a trusted third party, right? To hold the data, verify transactions, bless the final numbers. When you pull out that central pillar, every single subsequent step in the financial workflow has to adapt.
Section 1. The accounting evolution, where core principles meet new mechanics.
Now, the underlying goal of accounting? That remains exactly the same: accurately recording financial truth. But the methodology to get there is shifting completely. We're moving away from traditional systems, the ones characterized by manual gears, locked bank vaults, and these really rigid hierarchies. Instead, we're entering a world of interconnected nodes, decentralized networks, and digital wallets. Basically, we are transitioning from a system built on manual checks and balances to one built on absolute cryptographic certainty.
So the crucial takeaway here is this major pivot away from intermediaries and moving toward the direct interpretation of raw, immutable on-chain data. Intermediary-dependent reconciliations historically meant you spent hours, maybe even days, checking your internal books against a bank's external books just to see if they matched up, right? Well, in Web3, that entire tedious process is just obsolete. Instead, you're looking directly at the raw, immutable on-chain data. It can't be changed, it can't be forged, and it certainly doesn't require a bank manager's stamp to prove it actually happened. It gives you this unparalleled, immediate confidence in your financial reality.
Moving on to Section 2, operational mechanics compared. Let's talk about speed and verification.
Instead of that slow, methodical process of traditional accrual and reconciliation, Web3 introduces the lightning-fast speed of instant settlement. Traditionally, it's a staggered, clunky process. You record an invoice, wait days for a wire transfer to clear multiple clearinghouses, and then, eventually, you reconcile the accounts weeks later. Contrast that with Web3. The transaction and the settlement happen simultaneously. Literally the exact moment a digital asset moves, the transaction is verified and finalized. There is zero waiting period to reconcile. It's a real game changer.
And to verify those transactions, we anchor away from the locked vault of an intermediary bank and pivot directly to public transparency. In the traditional world, you need a bank statement, right? That proprietary, gated document generated by a third party to prove a transaction actually happened. But in Web3, that entire verification mechanism gets replaced by the Blockchain Explorer.
If you're not familiar, think of the Blockchain Explorer as a giant, public magnifying glass placed directly over the network. It gives you immediate verification. Imagine being able to just walk right into any bank in the world at any hour of the day and instantly audit their master ledger without even asking for permission. That's essentially what this tool allows us to do. Anyone, at any time, can view the raw ledger data. You just use the Explorer to look directly at the blockchain and confirm the transaction yourself with absolute mathematical certainty.
Now, what's truly fascinating here is how the very concept of timing shifts. We go from that delayed, earned, or incurred model right over to instant execution. Under the traditional accrual model, timing can be highly subjective. You record revenue when it's earned, expenses when they're incurred, regardless of when the cash actually changes hands. But in Web3, the focus entirely shifts to instant settlement. The movement of the token itself is the financial event. That frustrating gap between an economic event happening and the funds actually settling, that collapses entirely down to zero.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, Structure and Taxonomy, where we reclassify financial data.
Because timing and verification have completely changed, it makes sense that the way we actually organize the data has to change too. So instead of a traditional chart of accounts, we now have a wallet taxonomy. For generations, the universal language of business has been assets, liabilities, equity, revenue, and expenses, all stacked really neatly into these rigid, top-down boxes. But Web3 completely morphs that structure. It turns it into a dynamic, interconnected web of digital wallets with diverse tokens flowing seamlessly between them.
So rather than sorting everything into those broad categories of assets or liabilities first, you're now tracking the flow of specific tokens directly linked to digital wallets. The wallet taxonomy demands that you understand exactly what kind of token is moving and exactly where it's going. Like, for example, is a US dollar-pegged stablecoin moving into a specific corporate treasury wallet address? Or maybe a governance token is being deployed into a smart contract. The wallet address itself becomes the primary anchor for how you classify your data.
Finally, let's look at Section 4, the new responsibility, focusing on the human element.
Because, look, technology doesn't just operate in a vacuum, right? It inherently changes the demands placed on the professionals actually using it. With that safety net of the intermediary bank completely stripped away, you bear the direct responsibility to interpret this raw data. There's no bank manager serving as a buffer anymore. You literally have to understand how to read a blockchain explorer, how to accurately classify a complex token transaction, and how to apply those immutable global accounting standards directly to raw, unvarnished on-chain information. It's a massive, massive elevation in your technical and professional responsibility.
And this matrix perfectly recaps the profound paradigm shift we've been exploring today. This transformation really hits every single core pillar. For classification, we leave behind that static chart of accounts and embrace the dynamic wallet and token taxonomy. For verification, we drop the reliance on those proprietary bank statements and empower ourselves with public blockchain explorers. And for timing, we evolve from the delayed subjective accrual model right into the immediate hard reality of instant settlement.
The tools are undoubtedly faster, the data is far more transparent, and the mechanics are just undeniably revolutionary. But I want to leave you with this. With intermediaries totally gone, are you ready for the ultimate responsibility of raw data? The future of financial recording isn't just about adopting some new tech, it's about stepping up to the plate to become the ultimate interpreter of financial truth. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now, go dive into those explorers and see the future of accounting for yourself.